Hello everyone, and welcome to another Kebab Dev episode. Today we're going to be discussing a program that I started making back in 2009 as more of a thought experiment than an actual thing I was ever going to release, which will become apparent as we discuss what this program is. But the basic thing is this is the Auto Typoer, which is apparently a phrase that I have invented because I did a Google search and I'm the only person on the internet to ever actually say Auto Typoer to mean anything. So that's interesting. I didn't realize that, and that's what inspired me to make this video. But the Auto Typoer is an autotyper that emulates typos, and I don't think I invented this concept. I'm sure plenty of people have done this before, but specifically, this was inspired by me playing RuneScape, because in RuneScape, you would see people spamming messages in chat, usually in like high trade areas, like the Grand Exchange, and they would just repeat the same message over and over until they got muted or banned. And it's really easy, obvious to catch them, because they're never making mistakes. They're always having the same time between messages. It's very obvious. A computer can figure it out. A human can figure it out. It's easy. The thing about RuneScape was, though, that typing spam like that wasn't against the rules. Auto typing was. So you could do that as long as you were typing it yourself. And that's where this program came in, because I wanted to see how easy it would be to program something that they shouldn't be able to figure out was a robot. And this thing isn't complete. This is a proof of concept more than it is an actual finished project. But I came up with two types of typos as well as the missed shift chance. So the first typo is just typing the wrong letter. It checks for a nearby key and chooses one of the keys next to the key that you would have been pressing and misses that. So as you can see, my default chance is 10 out of 1,000, or 1 out of 100. A 1% chance of making that type of typo, which if you're speed typing, I think is pretty realistic. And then typo B is accidentally pressing two keys at once. So, if you're trying to hit I, you might accidentally hit 9 and I. And I put that at a very low chance because that gets annoying and it would be kind of obvious if you made a lot of those mistakes. But obviously it's customizable. And then missed shift chance is just the chance of you not capitalizing a letter that's supposed to be capitalized, which I think is pretty realistic at 18% if you're speed typing. But anyway, that is enough of that. Let's go ahead and demonstrate this program at its default settings. So to start it, you just press the home key and it will start typing out what it said at the default rate. You can see we already got a miss shift on the first one. We got a incorrect key on the second one, and we got an extra letter on the third one. So we've actually already seen the three possible types of errors that this program has already. But yeah, it'll just do this forever if you tell it to. As you can see, it's just a somewhat realistic typing rate. Obviously, someone speed typing would be typing faster, but we can mess with these settings as well. So let's get this program back up here and mess with some settings. First of all, what would happen if you were 100% of the time, not 100%, but 10% of the time making a typo B error, which goes off the edge of the screen because, this is well programmed, and 10% of the time you're making a typo A error. What would that look like? Let's find out. Now, I've seen people who type like this, and it is very annoying. I mean, I'll admit that I've typed things like oomph me before if I'm not looking at the keyboard and I get on the wrong keys. I've definitely done things like that before. Yeah, this is what would happen if you really sucked at typing. Let's go ahead and look at some more. So we got speed. We can go ahead and put it on the maximum speed. And just for fun, I am going to put this up to 100% error rate on both of these. And heck, we'll give it 50% error rate on the shift. And I'm going to limit the repeat amount just so that we don't get stuck with this forever. And then let's see. So yeah, that's doesn't really resemble the original message, does it? No. That is what would happen if you were about as bad at typing as is physically possible. Yeah, I tried to choose numbers that seemed realistic as the starting values, but obviously, if you were actually using this for what it would be designed for, which I never released it because I didn't want it to be used for that, you would probably want to change it up every once in a while so that it wasn't statistically obvious that your error rate was the same. And it might not be a realistic error rate. You'd have to figure that stuff out for your own. I guess I should press F1 for information. This is the TZ Auto Typoer 0.88. Don't really know where the number came from. But this basically just describes how it works. There's a few tags that we can use that I have not tried out yet. So we can go ahead and insert some of those. Why don't we? I think we... No, we can't use the program while this is up, so I have to remember those. So it's just num and tnum. You know what? I think we can just copy-paste this message. Yeah, we can. So then we go into here, do that. I also have pages, so you can put another thing here. So I could be like, second message. And it would have that. I don't know if it alternates between the messages or if it just does whichever one you're on the page of. I can't remember how I implemented it, but there's... Okay, you know what? We probably need to fix that. That would probably make sense. Let's go ahead and go back to a slightly above the default value for our typos, just so that we can see them a little more often. But we'll keep the speed high, because who wants to wait? So yeah, you can see it is doing the second message. So yeah, it does cycle through them. So that way, if you want to have multiple messages, you can. And it will send them separately instead of sending one long message. So this would let you alternate between messages, which would be useful. But yeah, the counting thing, obviously the repeated thing doesn't work with the second message thing quite as well. But that was one of the last features I added, was this whole page thing. I think I actually added that in 2010. I think the original version in 2009 did not have pages. It did have, I think, everything else though. This program was last edited in 2010, as far as I can tell. I don't know why I edited it. The only thing I ever actually used this program for was spamming a few of my friends in MSN Messenger. It was really just something that I made for fun. And it is a fun little program for sure, but it would definitely cause problems. Because I don't know that necessarily this program would be problematic, because I think they could probably detect you're running it, but you could take the concept of this code and port it over to something more secretive and use it there. Some type of bot client, and use that to spam. And there's obvious improvements that could be made. Like, if I was actually serious about using this, I would add AFK simulation, so every once in a while it would take a random break in between messages. Sometimes it might get interrupted mid-message and then start typing again. And every once in a while it would take like a 2 to 10 minute break. Stuff like that. If I was intending to actually spam with this. And there'd be a few more mistake types that you could probably build into this to make it even more realistic. You could have it where maybe like sometimes it says, I'm not going to make any errors for 40 seconds, just so that it's not obvious you're constantly making errors, things like that. You could add a whole lot of randomness to this to make it more realistic. Like maybe sometimes you would hit a completely wrong key. I think one of the big issues with the typo B, which is pressing a nearby key at the same time, is I think it should be less common with the space bar, because I think you're less likely to accidentally hit like C or V or B while hitting the space bar than you are with other keys. But that is the basic general concept behind this. And you might wonder why I didn't release this. I didn't want to be the person who did this to games like RuneScape and other multiplayer games, because this could have caused problems. Once again, I don't think it's an original idea, but I've never actually seen anyone use it. And it doesn't hurt to have this as a feature. It could make your bots last longer before having to make a new account. And especially if you're like spamming in a members area in RuneScape, making a new account does take effort. So I think it's a good idea. And I think that the only reason it hasn't been done is because people are lazy and they don't put the effort in. This was not hard to make at all. And I guess something else that you would do is you'd probably vary the speed more. It does vary the speed between key presses based on somewhat realistic amounts, so it's not the same time between each thing, but I think you'd probably add more speed variation as well. But realistically, I never even discussed this program really very much. I didn't want to be responsible for giving anyone the idea or anything. At this point, it's been so many years that I don't think it matters. And when I think back on it, maybe I should have released it, but anonymously, because I wouldn't want to be the guy who made it. But when I think about it, that rule where you were allowed to spam in RuneScape but not autotype is kind of a bad rule. And maybe this program would have fixed the rule where spamming was no longer allowed because they wouldn't be able to tell. Because that was the problem. A lot of people would spam and they'd be like, well, I'm not autotyping, it's allowed. So who knows, maybe this program could have done more good than bad in the end if I had released it back in 2009, polished it up, added the few extra features, and just released it. But I don't want to be that guy who made that. It was a fun little thing to make, and it's fun to play around with, but I don't want to release it. It has never, as far as I can remember, I've never uploaded this anywhere. Not even onto Dropbox or anything. I transported over this computer via USB stick. So this thing is like the ultimate secret that I developed. But I thought it'd be interesting to show off since apparently I invented the phrase Auto Typoer and nobody else has ever done that. And I find that interesting because it's very rare to come across things that are obvious like that that haven't been said before. So I'm amazed that I did it, over 10 years ago and never realized it until I Googled it and found out that the only person who ever mentioned it was me. Yeah, I'll see you guys next time to discuss another one of my creations. Not really sure what will be next, but I'm sure it will be something interesting. Bye!